Hello and welcome to another Physiotherapy video. In this video I'm going to talk to you about fear. Now fear is an emotion like our other emotion, joy, love, sadness and anger. And emotions are energy in motion. That's why we call them emotions. So energy in motion is a very nice way to think of it. And when we think of emotions, energy in motion, we can think of positive emotions having a very positive effect on our body, animating our body, animating our character, animating our action. Whereas negative emotions tend to inhibit, our character and inhibit, the things that we want to pursue out there in life. Now, when we look at the science of emotions, we can see that emotions have their counterpart. So you get happiness and sadness, love and hate, fear and courage. And we can think of these counterparts as being on the same continuum. And with it being on the same continuum, just vibrating at a different frequency. So it is known that positive emotions tend to vibrate at a higher frequency, whilst negative emotions tend to vibrate at a lower frequency. So when we look at fear is when we vibrate at a lower frequency to emit that emotion. And we can see it in our day-to-day life, because when we're fearful, things were not as bright as we appear to be when we're encouraged, when we're feeling very courageous. And same with love and hate. When we're in love, our emotions, our energy is at a much higher intensity, we're exhilarated. And when we're displaying the emotion of hate, that same vibration slows down. And this is important to know, because we can change our emotion by changing our mindset and just trying to bring our vibration at a higher level. And so when we look at fear and what fear is false evidence appearing real. And it's a construct of the brain. And the reason why fear is false evidence appearing real is because it happens in the past. Our thoughts about what happened in our past experience dictating the way we feel about a particular thing. And it also happens when we worry about the future. It rarely has its place, and from my experience, it doesn't have its place when we are fully present in the now. And two examples of that is there was a time where I nearly drowned, and there was another time where I was involved in a bus crash. So I was a passenger on the bus, and during these two particular incidents, whilst it was happening, there was no fear. And I believe there was no fear because they happened all of a sudden. And I also believe there was no fear because I didn't have any negative past experience about it either. It was only after I developed a fear of, drowning if I went back into the swimming pool after that experience. But prior to that, there was no fear because my mind was so much situated in the present. Everything slowed down whilst it was happening, and I was thinking what was going on rather than the thought of me dying. So previous conditioning and previous experience has a heavy role in what we see as fearful or not. That's why some people can jump out of planes, whilst other people might be afraid to leave their house. And when we look at fear is not designed to be a negative experience. When we look at animals, you can see most of the time they're in a fight and flight mode, and science has proven that they have very little, their memory is not as developed as us as human beings, so they let go of things very quickly. So they will see that tiger chasing them, and then that will be a fight and flight in that moment, and then after that, moments after, the fear is virtually gone. However, in human beings, when we're faced with the bills, when we're faced with a horrible boss, that fear stays in us for much longer, and it wrecks our lives, it plays havoc on it. And fight and flight, that mode of fear is born out of our reptilian brain. It's a survival instinct, and it is an unconscious response to a stimulus. However, when we become more grounded, when we meditate more, when we become more focused and place our presence, place our focus on the here and now, you will see that living in the here and now, it really, from experience, it doesn't allow fear to play out the way it would do, compared to if we're in a more unconscious state, living in the past, living in the future. When we look at the feeling of fear, I think it's very important that we don't mix up what is fear and the feeling that we can get, because I personally think they're two different things. For example, when we look at our comfort zone, fear is like the outer edges of the box that we choose to live in, and trying to step outside of that box, the borders of our mentality, the borders of our fear-provoking response is what keeps us in the box. And when we look at great people and very, very successful people and read their biographies, they actually live for that moment. So they live for the moment of being very uncomfortable, because in that discomfort, and I think it was David Goggins that termed this very well, and I think he was speaking about in the discomfort was the actual experience that told him that he was making progress. So the uncomfortable feeling shouldn't be associated with being negative, but we can use it as an indicator to say, okay, this is what we need to work at, this is the level we need to sustain for our personal growth in whatever we choose to achieve. So they say, and from experiences that people have reported back, but you're only really alive when you're living outside of your comfort zone. Everything inside the box is, mundane, and that doesn't matter what you're achieving, so you can still live a very mundane life and be a millionaire, because there's a point, as human beings, we should always be striving to grow. That is just part of our nature. And when we look at fear and how to overcome fear, again we look at its counterpart. So fear can only be destroyed with displaying courage. And when we look at courage, I feel that courage is just making up your mind about doing the things that are holding you back. I feel that courage is like fear, is a mental construct, and when we make our mind up, that is when fear can be properly defeated. I feel the problem that we have as human beings is that we don't like to dwell on our fear. We don't like to look at the source of our fear, because it brings up very uncomfortable feelings. But it's only by identifying a problem is when we can challenge a problem, and those uncomfortable feelings might never ever go away, depending on what activity it is. Usually through habit it will dampen like anything else, but even if those uncomfortable feelings don't go away, that's okay, because the aim is to use courage to overcome those experiences and look at fear for what it is, ground ourselves in the present. Once we've used courage to overcome the fear in our mind, really the only thing left to do is to perform in the actions. And planning can be a very, very good way to take the necessary steps you need to overcome the fear. But doing the action is just like riding the wave until the mission is complete. So I wish everyone a very fear-free week, and just realize that, even if you do find things uncomfortable, try and ground yourself in the present time, and you will definitely feel fear evaporating and becoming much smaller than it is. Have a nice day.